You may fire when ready.
What?
All right. Let's talk nerd stuff.
All right.
We're 2 weeks in, guys. We're almost a third of the way. And actually, given the length of this week's episode, we're a third of the way through the Book of Boba Fett.
It's only 6 episodes?
7. I heard it's 7.
Oh, okay.
Now. So I wonder if they weren't planning.
Yeah, I heard the same thing.
I wonder if they weren't playing. But initially, you're absolutely right, though, Ron. Initially, the reports were this was going to be 6 episodes. So I wonder if they didn't get to that 6th episode and decide, you know what, this is too long, or you know what, this is going to be better for us if we split it up. So now the word on the street is that it's 7. Where are you guys at so far after what, almost an hour and a half of content?
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't mind, Elliott, I'll go into it. I mean, I first of all, I missed the whole teaser of this at the end of The Mandalorian season 2. My 16.
How many times did you miss the teaser?
Just
3, 4.
My 16-year-old son, we've all heard him on the show, calls me. He's like, "Did you?" Because he knows I notoriously hate sitting through credits. I won't do it. And he calls and said, "I have to fast forward." This is on streaming, right? You don't have to sit there and wait.
Yep. And
I totally missed it. Like for 24 hours, I had no idea this Book of Boba Fett thing was even revealed. And so he finally showed me. I'm like, okay, well, okay, interesting. I always struggle with the fact that that's what he turned to, that he was going to take over this crime ring or the syndicate or whatever it is that Jabba was running. It didn't fit the personality. Maybe it's because Boba Fett was such a mystery to all of us that we kind of filled in the blanks ourselves. We gave him his own history and past in our own brains. And what he ended up doing didn't really fit that kind of thing. I thought he was kind of a loner, independent, you know. So I thought, okay, it's an interesting twist. But seeing the show, and I said it in a text to all of you guys. So far, I've been okay with it. It's been fine. But especially with the last episode, I basically feel like I'm watching Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations, visiting the Tuscan lifestyle, learning all about how they make their stuff and what food they eat and what kind of liquor they drink.
Ron, you just flashed for me like somebody's sitting there in a pitch meeting and they're like, okay, we're going to send Boba Fett to Tuscany. And they're like, Tuscan Raiders? What?
We're going to send Boba Fett to Tatooine.
No.
To explore the
Tuscan Raiders, not Tuscan, not Italian Tuscan.
Tuscany, right.
Raiders. I don't know what you're talking about. What do you? Huh?
No, we're gonna send a Stanley Tucci to Tuscany.
Tucci's going to Tuscany.
Boba is
Boba Fett's going to Tuscan. On Tatooine.
Yeah. Right.
Tatooine, Tuscany.
Yeah, it's confusing to executives.
Elliott. Well, yeah, especially if you're not a Star Wars fan, which we know 98% of Lucasfilm is not.
No,
so
they have no clue.
Where are you at so far?
I like it so far. I'm good with it. It's entertaining. I'm really enjoying the story. I really liked the last episode, especially with the Syndicate. In including them in a live action film. So, because we hadn't seen them, I think the only time we ever saw them was Clone Wars. So, the animated series.
Well, I mean, we actually hadn't seen
Clone Wars and Rebels, correct?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're talking about Tusken Raiders, right? Like, right?
No, I'm talking about the Syndicate.
Oh.
That was on the train.
Oh, you mean the Pikes?
And
yeah, the Pikes. Yeah.
Pikes. No, we've seen the Pikes.
We
saw them in Solo.
Yeah, we saw them in
Solo. You might not want
Mm-hmm.
to remember that, but there was a movie. It came after The Last Jedi. And
like 5 months after.
3. After The Last Jedi.
Hold on, I'm doing math.
Before The Rise of Skywalker. It was this movie. I don't know if you remember it, Elliott. It was called Solo. It was about Han Solo.
Vaguely.
Do you know that character? It was about Han Solo. And it told in the most basic detail all the storylines that we really did want to know about Han Solo, but not to that excruciating level of detail. And it actually, in retrospect, wasn't a bad film, The problem was it didn't uncover anything new. It didn't uncover anything we didn't already know about Han.
No. You're absolutely right. Okay, well, shit. I just saw a track record go down a Solo thing. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take the bait.
Nerds.
Yeah. No, we did see the Pikes. We saw. Yeah, you're right, Pete. We saw them on the Spice Mines of Kessel and Solo, but they've been in the Clone Wars. They show up in real life here too, and you see them unmasked. You didn't see them unmasked in Solo, which is kind of strange. I mean, they actually look like they're masked, which I didn't expect. It's actually pretty close. So that was it's an interesting one that they would have that much interest or something doings on Tatooine. I mean, Tatooine's if there's a bright center of the universe, Tatooine is the planet that it's farthest from. Certainly has a hell of a lot of shit going on as far as Star Wars is concerned. They've had both Darth Vader and Luke grow up and one be born and grow up on this planet. The other one just grow up on this planet after being evacuated, from his dying mother. You've had all kinds of other shit going on Tatooine. It is not the farthest thing from the bright center of the universe. I actually think Tatooine might be in the Star Wars universe the bright center of the universe. That seems to be where the most significant shit has ever happened. Look at everything that's happened with Boba Fett. The son of the copy of the clone who was the master copy for all the clones in the Clone Wars happens to be residing now on Tatooine. Like, Tatooine is not an insignificant planet. I don't get bored of those sands, man.
And that's where Jabba's palace was.
That's right. And they've actually reproduced that thing pretty well. I mean, all the scenes with that we were used to seeing in Return of the Jedi, they've copied them all. Now there's less people. It seems like less populated. So maybe a little bit, maybe like a party that ended an hour ago, and you still want to party, but nobody's there. I kind of feels that's what Jabba's palace feels like right now. Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know, guys. I have a little bit of an empty feeling yet for the show. It hasn't really taken its hold on me. But I will tell you, with the Tusken Raiders, I've learned way more about the Tusken Raiders than I ever thought I would or ever wanted to. But I appreciate it. They've not done it poorly. It's not taken away from it. It's actually added a new depth. But I'm not sure how significant what significance in the galaxy, the Star Wars galaxy, I should put on the Tusken Raiders. I don't know that I ever needed them to be that important, but okay. I'm not offended by it. It's been fine.
So I gotta ask, have you seen the meme with the apologizing Obi-Wan Kenobi?
No.
Where it's him, and it's got a whole bunch of microphones in front of his face, and he's saying, "May I take this opportunity to apologize for my use of the term sand people when describing the noble Tusken Raiders. It was wrong, and I have learned my lesson. I have many friends in the TR community, and I am deeply ashamed."
No, I have not seen that. I have not seen that, but that is really good.
That is awesome.
I had a buddy send that to me today. So yeah. Just everything with,
Yes, with today.
Is politically correct.
That's amazing. Ron, you mentioned Tatooine being... So it's clear that our perception of Tatooine is based on Luke's perception. And Luke felt that he was growing up on a desert planet. But I think what the Star Wars saga has uncovered for us is that you're absolutely right. Tatooine is the furthest thing from the center of the universe. Geographically, it may be. But I think I remember reading that that it's actually somewhat uniquely positioned on the galactic trade routes, on the hyperspace routes, and that's why Jabba is there. It's not an accident that a member of the Hutt clan is on Tatooine. Its remote location, when you think about it, it makes sense that the Pikes and the Hutt would be operating there, because its remote location makes it an ideal place for there to be smuggling operations, because it's too far to station a garrison, right? It'd be quickly overrun. You wouldn't station a garrison that far up. So it absolutely makes sense.
No, it does.
And you're right. Our perception of the planet Tatooine has been colored by Luke's perception. that he was in the middle of.
Well, initially,
when in actuality, he was been at the center of everything his whole life.
But initially, it was right because that's what he said in the very first movies. We saw it again in Return of the Jedi very briefly, because we saw that Han Solo return to the planet, all that stuff, and it wasn't that whole thing. The whole thing wasn't changed until you get to Episode 1. Going all the way to the prequels. So, well, shit, his dad was from here too, and then wait, all of a sudden, it starts to change. And like, no matter what Star Wars creator pops up, they can't get away from Tatooine. It has some kind of pull to them, some kind of significance where you go back to it for some reason, because there was such a rich history from the very beginnings of Star Wars. The very first images we saw weren't just a starship. It was the planet below that. And so much of the story has unfolded there or been embedded there that I don't think we're ever going to see. I mean, Christ, guys, the best video game franchise that existed for Star Wars was the Knights of the Old Republic. And guess what? They went back to Tatooine at one point, even in that thing. So I don't think that they're ever going to get away from it. I think every creator from this point forward, it's going to be like having Stan Lee in every Marvel movie. Like, there's going to be Tatooine in every Star Wars property at some point in time. Some touch of it, anything. So I'm okay with that. If you have to have some kind of anchor in Star Wars, it doesn't have to be the theme. It doesn't have to be the music. I'm okay if it ends up being Tatooine.
I agree. I tell you, I'm with you guys. I think I'm kind of in between. It's definitely been a slow burn these first 2 episodes. Mm-hmm. I loved this week's episode, especially because it gave me another opportunity to educate my son on all of the fan service that we have been getting. I mean, this week's episode was loaded with it. If you're a Star Wars fan and have been for as long as the 3 of us have been, this was amazing. The Rancor, getting to see additional Hutts in live action that didn't look terrible, like Jabba's girlfriend in Episode 1. Getting to see an evil Wookiee. We'd never seen a bad Wookiee before, at least not in live action Star Wars. And we got to see a bad Wookiee. We saw the Pikes fantastic. On Tatooine. We've learned an incredible amount about sorry, not Sand People. I don't want to offend. Tusken Raider culture. And the deepest cookie. And I stopped it when the boy and I were watching the show today. And I explained it to him, and then I stopped it when we got to the credits. He was like, "Dad, you were right." We finally saw Cammy and Fixer in Tashi Station on screen. And if you haven't been, you really have to be a big time Star Wars nerd for the names Cammy and Fixer to mean anything to you.
Yeah.
And they not only were they in the story, they were credited, which means that it was canon. That was Cammy and Fixer in Tashi Station. I mean, if you have any doubts about how much of a fan Jon Favreau is and how much he wants to take care of this week's episode should put those 2 rest.
Well, and it had a lot to do with Filoni too, right? I mean,
and did you notice that?
Go ahead.
Yeah. In the first 2 episodes were both done by Rodriguez.
Right. And then now he plays the mayor of Mos Espa.
Got an issue with that one. Yeah, got an issue with that
him playing the mayor, or with a hammerhead being the mayor.
No. I think, and it had some issues in the Mandalorian too with a couple of the. Who's the bluegill guy? Very first episode, the first bounty that Mando.
Horatio Sands.
Right. I mean, just the way the guy talks and everything. Some things seem out of universe, and I know Star Wars can. You go back and listen to dialogue from every movie, every episode. There's stuff in there that.
You're going to talk about the Major Domo.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about this yet, guys. I'm willing to let things breathe. Right. I don't sip wine as soon as I pop the cork and say it sucks. I like to let things breathe a little bit before I pass too much judgment on it. But that whole mayor's when he goes to send a tribute to Jabba, that character, that Twi'lek in general, like
he's the Major Domo.
Bib Fortuna is my bar for Twi'leks.
Yeah.
I don't know who this guy is. This David Hasselhoff of Twi'leks. Like, I don't like you. You speak too much like we do here today on this planet, and I kind of don't like that. I don't like when they do that kind of thing. So this one is a little bit out of character, or out of universe for me. I don't take to this one just like I didn't take the Horatio Sands bluegill guy in the beginning. Seemed like these two guys could have easily been on just a Star Trek episode, Next Generation back in the 90s or 80s, whenever it was. It seems out of place.
Ron, I hear you. I absolutely do. But I think so. This guy, David Pasque, you've seen him before. If he wasn't in the makeup, you've seen him. He's got a career. And I'm scrolling through his resume right now to try and find what he's probably most recognizable from. I mean, he's been on Veep. He plays Andrew Meyer on Veep. He's been on Chicago Fire.
Fine.
He's been on all kinds of stuff. And what that tells me is this character is a choice. There is a reason that he's coming across this way, because this guy doesn't have a resume as extensive as his is if he doesn't know what he's doing. And so he's being coached into it. I don't know what that choice is, but here would be my guess, right? Because you're absolutely right. As far as we know, Twi'leks start and end, or they start with Bib Fortuna.
Well, yes.
But Bib Fortuna didn't speak English.
No, he spoke Huttese, right?
And he spoke Huttese, and he expected that you spoke Huttese.
Right.
So
let's just say it, like the male Twi'leks that we've seen, even in the early days in the Clone Wars, all ugly MFers, all of them, misshapen heads. Now the female Twi'leks, of course,
hot,
right? And now you get a male Twi'lek that actually looks normal.
Hats off to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni for getting Jennifer Beals.
Holy shit! She looks good, fantastic.
Can we just take a break for a second?
Yes.
And let's recognize how good this old cast looks. Tim Morrison, Ming-Na Wen, and Jennifer Beals. Holy shit, I want to look that good in 7 years.
Holy crap, I do too. I'm going to look that good in 10 years. I mean, all of them. I mean, Ming-Na Wen, you can't go wrong. I mean, she doesn't age.
She's 58.
There's no way, man.
She looks younger than me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And me. And Elliott.
Combined.
And Elliott's son. She looks younger than Elliott's son.
But yes, you're absolutely right, Ron. Our experience of the male Twi'leks has been that they're horrid, misshapen monsters, right? And that's why I think that this is definitely a choice, right? Mm-hmm. This guy looks cleaner. He speaks English.
Perfect English.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that they're leaning into that, right? Like they have found the most obsequious, most normal looking Twi'lek that they can for this Ithorian mayor, right? If you're going to have somebody who is going to be his face, like they do everything they can to protect this guy from actually having to deal with the public.
Mm-hmm.
And so his face is going to be as pleasing as possible. Jabba didn't need this guy. Jabba wanted a Twi'lek who only spoke Huttese and whose teeth were pointy and who swore at you, who cursed at you, and had his creepy long nails, and he was fondling R2 in a very uncomfortable way.
What he did, he had the nails on that head.
Yep, but that was the major domo that Jabba the Hutt needed.
Kenny Baker spoke about that in a documentary.
I bet. But this makes sense that this is the face of the government in Mos Espa.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely bothered by him, but I think for him and for the whole Book of Boba Fett to this point, this feels like we're being slow played, and I think that this is going to be a really slow burn, and I think that we are going to be sitting there with our jaws
it's definitely
on the floor at the end.
It's definitely a slow burn as far as what's happened from Mandalorian on, right? Because we've spent over half this time, guys, in the somebody called this on Rebel Force Radio. I love the term flashback. When he's in the back of the tank, there's a flashback to his, and I love how they've done this. I really appreciate it, and I think that they even mentioned it on their podcast. Or I think the creators of this have taken influence from The Godfather, especially The Godfather 2, about spending like half that movie in the past, which worked for that movie, right? And it was really good. And I think they're doing that too, where it's telling the story of what, one, how he got out of the Sarlacc pit, which we haven't talked about that yet, but I thought that was Like, okay, a lot of interesting things going on there. I won't. Let's go into detail on that later. But it told him, it told the story of how he got out, what happened to him after, how he got his armor stolen from a bunch of Jawas and motherfuckers. They do that every time. They like to steal shit. And he was basically rescued by Tuskens. You didn't think that when they took him. He looked like almost like property, slave, or somebody they were going to kill. But they basically saved his life, and he's taken on to their culture. And people ask, well, why? 5 years after Return of the Jedi, which is when Mando is supposed to take place, right? 4 or 5 years, somewhere around that time frame. Why come out now? He spent that much time in the desert with them. And now you're starting to learn why. Like, it was a culture. They took him in. It was something he wanted to protect. I mean, he could have left in the last episode and not come back. But he came back with the speeder bikes and said, hey, we're going to take out this train. Maybe he had another motive. Maybe we'll learn about it later. But, he's shown some kind of loyalty to this desert tribe that took him in and saved his life and showed him a different way. So a lot has changed with him. Maybe the lizard up his nose had something to do with it. I don't know.
Well, and I think that this is definitely giving more depth to Boba Fett's character than I think that we had ever assumed, right? And you had referred to it before. We always assumed that Boba was this loner, a loner bounty hunter, but Dave Filoni and George Lucas put the lie to that during the Clone Wars, because we saw Boba Fett working with now he was a kid, but still we saw him working with other bounty hunters to achieve his goals. And that continued on. That wasn't just a one-time story arc. That happened time and time again. And I'm beginning to wonder if kind of the story that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are writing is that Boba Fett never was actually a loner who was solely motivated by bounty hunting, but that instead he was somebody who was motivated by simply by the money. And he now sees the opportunity with Jabba's throne being vacant this is an even easier way to.
Right. And this is so far like where he is right now in Jabba's throne to where we see these flashbacks is probably a good 2 to 3 years in between. So, what's happened with him? What's changed him a little bit from being that loner, that cold calculating killer that, get the bounty at whatever cost, all his training and everything, into, wanting to run a crime syndicate or be the boss. I still don't know where that's going yet. So
neither do I, and I'm here for the ride. And I think that the things that we're going to find out over the next 6 episodes, as the flashbacks get closer and closer to the present, I think it's pretty clear. Boba's going to marry the warrior, right? Because
with the long hair, right?
That's a female Tusken. So there's going to be a connection there. I assume he's probably going to adopt that little kid, or else he's going to have a Tusken of his own.
Hey, if he's going to leave the Twi'lek Jennifer Beals available, I'm good with that.
Well, that too. Well, yeah, maybe she's the next. And then what is going to be the step that brings the story to the point where he finally decides not only that I'm going to get my armor back from Cobb Vanth, but that I'm going to return from isolation. I've been in isolation for 5 years, and he clearly has built a life for himself. So what's going to pull him out of that? And I'm very curious about that, because there's going to have to be something incredibly compelling. And, there's been speculation. Is Fennec Shand, we see that she's not entirely human. And the question was that as a result of him saving her life?
Well, she's obviously, if she's 58, like you said, she is not entirely human.
Right, exactly. So that's the question. Is she a cyborg that he built while he was out in the desert?
Maybe. Well, this is a hot one. Let me get some parts together. Preserve it. But no, glad you enjoyed that.
Oh, here you go. What if Fennec Shand is that female Tusken?
I don't think that's the case, but I'm willing to leave the whole thing open. But there's a lot of interesting possibilities or twists and turns that this thing can take. But Pete, what I think pulls him out of the whole Tusken, like I think he stays there for a long time, and I think he's compelled to, like, they've shown him mercy, they've shown him a way, they've challenged him. and accepted him, and he's earned his place, right? Like he carved out his own gaffy stick. You know, he's kind of, you know, taken to, hey, look, I'm learning a different way to do things that aren't as easy. There's not machines available to make me do these things easy. I have to earn it. I think he's learning a whole new skill and growing as a character by going through this culture. This is a very hard culture to live through, right? Imagine being an outsider, being accepted, and having them take him in and earn all these things that they only afford to their own. I think my prediction is what pulls him out of this is he learns that the armor exists and is out there. I think he sees it, learns about it, and it pulls him back to the life he had before, but he's taking with him all these new things that he's learned. I think that's likely where it's going. He's got unsettled scores, but I think many people have predicted, like, well, Solo is the one that put him in that pit accidentally, but he did. So is he going to go after him as a vendetta? And I just don't see him doing that anymore. I don't see that being a thing. I think he's transformed.
Well, did you hear the rumor or see the rumor from Dictor Van Doomcock today?
No.
Dropped several hours ago. Apparently his sources are saying, which could be exciting, who knows, his sources are saying that we're going to see the big three at the end of Book of Boba Fett. That they've secured rights from Billy Lord, and that she's going to voice Leia, and that towards the end of this arc, who knows if it's true, but towards the end of this arc, we're going to see Luke, Leia, Han, and Grogu on Tatooine.
And Grogu.
And Grogu.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Really?
Fits into the timeline.
Yeah.
It seems like, you know, the fountain drink kids used to think was cool, the suicide where you put every flavor over the ice.
Ron, if I had told you a year ago that Luke was going to be in the last episode of The Mandalorian.
Well, if you told me a year ago, he would have been. So you got to go back like 13 months.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I had told you at the beginning of season 2 that Luke was going to be in the last episode of The Mandalorian. What would your reaction be?
I would have said, they're not going to do that. Like, they wouldn't go there. They wouldn't risk it.
And what was your reaction when it happened?
Holy shit, they did it. And they did it pretty well.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see if Dictor is right.
Dictor Van Doomcock, right? I hope he's right.
I hope he is too.
I hope he's right, just because of his name.
Yeah, just so that everybody has to properly credit Dictor Van Doomcock
on the news.
Dictor Van Doomcock, as predicted by Dictor Van Doomcock the first week of January. Must credit.
Yeah. That's what I want.
That was kind of like when
that's what America wants.
Katy Perry's booty hole.
That's right.
Broke news.
Katy Perry's booty hole.
Not only did her booty hole break news, it also broke wind. Oh, and
really? See, I imagine it being coated with glitter.
Well, that's what comes out when she breaks wind. You can ask Orlando Bloom. I'm sure he knows. So we've already gone through the closing, and I think that we've landed where we need to land. It's the first week in 2022, which as somebody pointed out to me, there's something really disturbing about that. Is that if you actually analyze it, it's 2022. So let's hope that it's not. Let's hope that 2022 can be its own year and not 2020 again. I got nothing else to say, boys. It's good to see you back on the screen. Ron, I can't wait to listen to the podcast with Katie. Woo! And
I asked her about the wooing.
I'm done. I got nothing else to say.
I got nothing else either. All right. Glad to be back, everyone. We'll be back next week. Same time, same place. Hopefully baseball gets its shit together, but we're not counting on it, so we'll come up with other stuff to talk about and fun stuff and insane stuff. So until then, love you all so much. Bye-bye, everyone.